Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Pivot Point. I'm Parnell Woodard, your host, and today, really excited to bring you Sarah Heringer. Did I get that right, Sarah?
Heringer.
Heringer. Got it.
Yes.
My apologies. I try and get that correct, but sometimes
Happens
I
all the
mess
time.
that up. So, Sarah is the owner of a company called the Orig Method Life. She is a board certified holistic health practitioner, nutritionist, somatic and health coach, and obviously business owner. She specializes in guiding women, particularly executives, to transcend the restrictive cultural norms that foster perfectionism and burnout. Kind of an appropriate conversation in light of I think it's Women's Business Month this month for March. She is an experienced nutritionist and fitness professional, and her practice goes beyond the conventional by focusing on both the physical and emotional dimensions of health. She prefers a more grounded, impactful approach to health and self-care. She typically works one-on-one as a personal coach, but also facilitates group sessions, crafting personalized strategies that empower her clients to redefine their self-image and pursue their true aspirations. As a public speaker, she engages on the importance of a holistic approach to health, discussing how you can break free from societal pressures and envision a lifestyle that really enhances your well-being. Sarah, welcome.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I was like, wow, that's really in depth. I was like, that was good. So you
Good.
nailed it. You nailed all of it. So thank you.
Cool. No, not at all. Glad to have you. So talk a little bit about your background. It looks like you spent a little time kind of in corporate America. You got to a point maybe looks like about 10, 15 years ago thereabouts where you kind of said, I think maybe I've had enough of this and I really want to pursue my own thing. What drove you to do that?
Yeah, it was quite like the kind of corporate, where you're chasing I think kind of just like the traditional uh, cultural expectations of get a job, do well, move up, work for promotions. And while I was really good at what I was doing, I didn't enjoy it at all. And I wasn't passionate about it. And there was really this split personality of this person who would go, and I would just kind of turn off and turn into a character and play a game, and then I would go home and be this different person. And I had very different and kind of like conflicting hobbies and passions when it came to health and wellness that don't really exist in that corporate world. And it just got to a point where I was like, I can't play make believe anymore, and it's time to kind of go and do this on my own and just take the risk and go from there.
Yeah. And we see so much more of it even today, right? You hear all about quiet quitting and, there's so many people that kind of they go in and they check the box, but they're not really engaged. And, employers see it all the time. People with side hustles increasingly because they're trying to do more things on the side because they're not happy with their business. But, in terms of creating your own business and starting your own company, was there a particular problem that you saw that you really wanted to solve, or was it more of a passion, a personal passion that you wanted to pursue?
I think it started out as a personal passion, and you do cocktail napkin math in a bar one night and you're like, yeah, I could totally run a business. Like I could do this and I could make this kind of money and all of that and do what I want and be really, really happy. And as really the evolution of even my business, it started it was a different iteration of the original method when I first started in 2018, and I actually lost it during COVID. So in 2020, because at the time it was a fitness facility, I did personal training and nutrition only. And obviously during the shutdown, that was it. And from a business sense, it really was this is a business, and it would have only been a personal passion decision to keep it alive, and that would have really sunk the cost and really kind of, it didn't make sense for my family. It's like, that's just would really be like, if completely personal, you're sinking way too much money. This needs to be a business decision and you need to let it go.
Yeah.
And then to be able to really then look and take that time and start to notice a bunch of problems that I was like, I really think there can be a solution to this and a solution to this in people who are maybe in corporate work environments. They do, they are really, their passion is leadership in a company, but also maintaining balance and health and all of that. And so that's where it switched to more of a, I want to solve problems for people.
Interesting. So when you're sitting down with your back of the napkin math, right, and looking at this and thinking about doing it, were there some steps that you took before you actually made the leap? Was there research you did? Were there people you spoke to? What did you do before you said, I'm taking that leap?
Yeah. So I had a little bit of experience. My husband and I also own a business with him. It is a gym, and it did survive COVID, and that's kind of our flagship, our first one. And we did do a lot of, he is very logical, loves spreadsheets, very data driven. And so being able to have a partner and even learn from that, where he was like, no, we really got to crunch the numbers. And then we would go and visit, different locations and neighborhoods, and, he was pulling demographics and all of that stuff. And so there does have to be, because again, I've talked about, passion and everything. It's like, you do need to run some numbers. You do need to make sure that you're opening up at, market value, really. If you're brand new to something, I think obviously price wise, specifically, you could make some considerations for that, but you don't want to devalue yourself. And so I do really think having a really good knowledge of the product you're selling, or how you're having an understanding of P&L and all of that is a really good thing to have before you open a business.
Yeah. Was there anything in particular that you really missed, leaving the structure and security of corporate America?
Yeah, I mean, is it a security blanket or is it golden handcuffs?
Yeah, well, and I for those that are listening, and when I did security, I did air quotes, right? But
yes.
Because now more and more and more, every time you turn around, there's no loyalty in corporate America,
yeah.
And so many other people are in control of your path forward, right?
Yes.
And do you there's a lot of people that don't want that. They want to have more control over their own path forward. But there is still a sense of security. There's still a sense of structure. Was there anything that you missed from that?
Yeah, I think, the one thing depending on the type of business that you open and you go into, but I think it probably applies for most, at least for me, is when you're doing one thing, then you're like, I can do this one thing, and this is my one part of the job that I do. And when you first open a business, you do everything. Mm-hmm. So, and you do need to, systems work. And, I'm not there may not just be a system. I think everyone has to find their own system, obviously. Indeed. But you have to spend the time to really figure that out, and quickly. Otherwise, and because you're used to working on things, and you're also used to working on things that you don't really like sometimes, like if you leave your job because you don't like it. So then you spend a lot of your time in the beginning working on things that you don't like, and you're like, that may not be necessary either. So yeah. Getting systems in place, but then also figuring out, what is really the most important thing to work on, which is sometimes that deep work that, it's not busyness, getting that all fixed. And those are not really things that you're taught. You're definitely not taught how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
in corporate America. You're taught how to have meetings and do spreadsheets.
Yeah. Yeah, and within the guidelines of whatever your job is, right, in the framework of that job, right, when you start a company from scratch, now, you're chief clerk and bottle washer, right, and some of that you love, and some of that you're not going to love. But like you said, starting that, creating the process, creating, a brand, creating your own marketing initiatives, creating your own outreach, all of that you have to do on your own. So, you mentioned how supportive your husband was. Was there family, friends, did you get any resistance or pushback from them, or how did you find that your network of people around you?
No, that was, I saw that question and I was like, wow, I actually, I've never had resistance from people being like, oh, I don't think you should do that, or even like, have you done your homework? Have you looked into that? Like that kind of, everyone's just been like, wow, that's really amazing. That's great. Or like, yeah, of course, that's just kind of the natural progression. It makes sense. So really, if anything, I have a lot of cheerleaders, and that's so needed and so nice. And I know that, that is not something that everyone has, but I think it's so important to find those people.
Yeah. Alex Hormozy has a really great quote about surrounding yourself with, if you have a goal or a destination, a place you want to arrive at, he said, surround yourself with the people who've been there. Don't surround yourself with the people who are where you are now. Not because they're not your friends and they haven't supported you, but they may not have gone to where you want to go. And you need to surround yourself with people to where you want to go, because they know what it's like. They understand what it's like to do that. So, were there any resources or mentors that you use to really navigate, getting into business for yourself?
In the beginning, it was all really a lot of self-research, self-study, and 5 years ago, I hired a business coach, and that is the best decision that I've ever made.
Awesome.
It's like, and it makes sense. I'm like, I'm a coach. That's the whole, if you want to get someplace quickly, like, someone who knows how to help you develop a system, or who has developed systems. And so, that to me is just finding some kind of mentor, coach. That investment is so worth it. It really should it's something I think everyone should just budget in to their cost, is that kind of development. It'll get you there so much faster, because I don't necessarily know. Maybe you can weigh in on this, or some of your guests, but I don't know if an MBA really preps you for.
No.
Yeah.
No, not for building something from scratch. No,
exactly.
There's and that doesn't mean that they're not book smart, but it's a different game.
Totally.
So, it's funny because Oprah Winfrey has a coach. Michael Jordan had a coach when he played. The best of the best still have coaches. And sometimes those coaches, their role isn't there to be just a cheerleader. Their role is to be there to challenge you and to push you, right? I talk with a lot of my clients about comfort zone, and the edges of most people's comfort zones are the edges of their knowledge. And the reason they get uncomfortable outside that comfort zone is because they're in a space that they don't know. Yeah. But have a coach help you do that. Have a coach help you expand that comfort. That's when you learn. That's how you grow, right?
Yeah.
Your coach, was there any one thing or two things that maybe they did that, when you think back on those conversations, that really had a big impact on getting you either out of the gate, getting you over some kind of a milestone or a hurdle?
So when I made the decision to hire a coach, I also made the decision to just do whatever they told me to do in the beginning, because I knew it didn't have anything to do with my effort. I was like, that is, I am working this hard to not really have the results that I think are in alignment with really how good I am at this. Like my expertise, how long I've been doing it, things like that. So there's something missing, and what's missing, I don't know. So sure. I'm going to pay someone to help me figure that out. Yeah. And so in the beginning, she would just give me things to do and I would just do it. And through the process of doing it that's how adults learn. And then you're like, oh, okay. And it just, you have those moments and that's just golden. So, but ultimately, I think I had to have trusted her in order to do that. And, so the questions also, that she asked were in just the relationship initially in the beginning. So I think that was really important. She was able to win trust over really quickly, but also, it's more of just, you've got to be willing to do what your coach tells you to do sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And try.
Yeah. And trusting in that's really
Yeah.
important. So, are there any misconceptions or, about getting into business for yourself, about being an entrepreneur that you would want somebody to think about or be aware of?
Yeah, I have a really positive one. You just like your work so much, and not like, it's not, to your point, there are a lot of really challenging things, but even that is really enjoyable. When you're self-regulated and you fed yourself for the day, and even something that's difficult can be really, really fun. So I do think that's a pretty big misconception, is that it's just this scary, you work all the time, you're chained, your life is your job, and that it can be that for some people, but it doesn't have to be that for people.
Yeah. Is there anything that you can think of that might have been maybe a little bit easier or maybe a little bit harder than you thought it was going to be?
I think it's a little bit harder to not take things personally.
Okay. That's a good one. Yeah.
You're like, this is business. This is not who I am. And I didn't expect that. I thought I was going to be pretty no big deal. So that was a learning. Easier. I think the work itself, because again, it's just when it's more enjoyable, it's, you get through a lot of stuff when you're in the flow, when you're working on it and you like it, and you like the connection. And, again, until someone experiences that, I don't think they really have an understanding for it.
Yeah. The good point about taking things personally. I know that when I started coaching, so if somebody didn't want to move forward with working together, you had to go through this process where you're like, well, it's not necessarily about me. And now, honestly, I'm at the point where I'm like, good, because I don't want to work with you if you're not ready to work. If you're not ready and you don't want to commit to doing it, then don't waste your time and don't waste my time. And that's fine. I'm not offended by that. I'd rather we have that conversation up front, right? Much like when you sit down and work with somebody on your side, I presume, if they're not willing to make the commitment and put in the effort to make that change in their health and their body, then why are you here, right? So interesting. Yeah. Talk about work-life balance. So you come out of corporate America, you decide you're going to start your own thing. Maybe those first few years are kind of tough because you feel like maybe you're working really, really hard at it. But what's your work-life balance like now, and how would you compare it to back in corporate America?
I really get to determine my own schedule. It's like you are the master of your own fate, and so my schedule, I like to spend the mornings doing I get up before everyone else in the house does. I've got to, again, go to bed early, get up early kind of person, do journaling, just brainstorming, reading articles, whatever it feels that I need to focus on for the day, or kind of the structure that I have for the week. So I'm not starting my day reacting. And that is such a big balance that, so many people, and I used to be the same way, you set your alarm so it goes off and you have just enough time, I gotta brush my teeth, eat breakfast, there's no buffer time built in to even to a point, if there's traffic, that's a huge stress because
you're right.
traffic in if people are, when they were commuting more often. But anyway, and so most people just start their day off in a very reactionary state of being. And when you really realize that you're dictating and controlling and creating that kind of stress for you, you can make those decisions to be different, and you just have more. And I think it's also cyclical. There is no like, oh, I work hard 9 to 5 and then I'm off at hours. There are some weeks where it's like 2 weeks around the clock because you're working on something, and then you're in between. And so then you get to rest, and it is seasonal. And I do, for me and a lot of the women that I work with, just being in perimenopause and even just like women with cycling, we're very different. And so teaching women how to work within their energy and within that. So my work-life balance has a lot of different things that are factored in, of making sure that everything that I'm set up to do is coming from a pretty good place, not reactionary. I'm in tune to the kind of level of energy and where I'm at and what I need to work on within, even a biological sense. And I think I love that aspect of it.
Yeah. You mentioned the journaling and the time in the morning for focus and concentration, so that it can put you in kind of a proactive mood, or a proactive perspective, I guess, going into the day. Are there any boundaries that you've set up as well to help you maintain that work-life balance?
Yeah, I think communicating with expectations, time, money, and communication with either employees, partners, clients in particular on the very beginning up front is really important. That's something I've learned because I have not had that at times. But yeah, there are certain, this is how you get a hold of me. This is the channel of communication. These are the expectations. And then really sticking to your own boundaries, where you're like, listen, if I've said I'm not going to respond to emails on my days off, why would I even read them?
Yep. Yeah, it is so true. And it's so important though, because if you're going to set up the boundaries and then you break them,
yes,
well, whose fault is that? Right. So I applaud you with that. I think it's really important, and it's so important to being able to clear your head from work, even though it's your business, right? And that's a far cry from corporate America, where, you get an email on the weekend from your boss. A lot of times they expect you to respond. And it's the weekend, right? Or you get a phone call at 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night, or a text or something like that. Those boundaries are so important at managing your own mental health, right? And your own mental well-being. I really applaud you for that. I think that's a great example. Yeah.
And I even think, like, with the corporate side of things too, I do think people have more ability to do that than they think. It's when you go in though, people are trying to impress someone so much, where they're like, I'll just do all this self-betrayal, walk all over me because I'm the best employee ever. And you're like, you can't do that for more.
It's for that next rung on the ladder, right? Yeah. It's because you're thinking about that next rung on that ladder. Absolutely. Yeah. So you get into business for yourself, you're doing your thing. Is there a specific moment or a milestone that kind of came along where you were just like, wow, this is why I got into business for myself?
Yeah. Well, so our first business, we just hit our 10-year mark, and that was huge. And we had a really big party for all of our clients. And when you see everyone there and the lives that you have impacted, in that way, and you've built something that didn't exist before, and it's actually something that gives people a lot of value in their life. That moment was really, really incredible. And then, again, being able to have the worst thing that I think a business owner can experience, that, we're all afraid of, is failure and losing a business. It happens to you, and you're like, okay, That sucked, but also being able to relaunch, you're able to then go and maybe you circle the wagons or you go. I kind of went into the wilderness, it felt like, for a while. I disappeared and was really like, oh my God. And then you're like, yeah, but it's just a business, and that's fine. And you can do it all over again and you can start it all over again. And when I was able to basically, again, do exactly what I was passionate about and really wanted to do and restart, that was also a really
Yeah.
meaningful moment for me.
Yeah, yeah. I think Tony Robbins said a long time ago, he says, there's no such thing as failure. You just achieved undesired results.
Yes.
And I really like that because you still accomplished something. It just
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily what you were aiming at. And hopefully you learn from it so it gets you a little bit closer to being able to accomplish what you were aiming at. So,
Yeah.
absolutely. If you could go back, is there one piece of advice you would give Sarah 10 years ago to do things differently?
Yeah, work with a coach sooner.
Okay.
I think that's, start with that, do it sooner. And yeah, hang on for the ride. It's worth it.
So you're sitting down across the table, maybe having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee with somebody who's thinking about getting into entrepreneurship. Outside of the coach recommendation that you just made, are there small, simple, practical steps that you might say, hey, do this, do these things, as you think about it?
Yeah. I mean, reasonable timelines. That is, and how to really create a reasonable timeline for yourself based off of, are you a solo, entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a startup where you actually have a team? Everyone has different considerations for that, but a reasonable timeline, because I think we live in a culture where it's Amazon, deliver today. I can't believe I have to wait for it to show up tomorrow type thing. And so we get an idea and it's like, why am I not successful? Why have I not? So being able to plan, forecasting is a skill for sure. And so I think, being able to do those two things is really, really important.
Any misconceptions you think you'd want them to know about beforehand?
That's a great one. I mean, there's probably a lot, but I think the biggest misconception it's like imposter syndrome. And it's like, and that really is it. It's like that you need to be aware of that. And that could be a really big misconception, is that you're not ready or you're not good enough, or you need to discount, your prices or your time in order to get people in the door. And you don't have to do any of that. That's a huge misconception.
Yeah, and early on, you mentioned earlier some of the ups and downs and hold on for the ride type of thing. Is there any counsel you would give them to prepare emotionally, right, for some of the challenges that lie ahead?
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of that connection with yourself, and I think whatever tools, I am a somatic coach, and so I do think doing a lot of understanding where your nervous system is at, with activation, how to really feel that, how to really be able to not, it's like we can't hold on to this anxiety and this threat all the time. And so what are exercises that people can do to release that? And it's, success could be, and everything that you're doing at this, new time, it's new, and your body is not used to these new experiences, doing things differently. Yeah. It often wants to seek the familiar because it's comfortable. Yeah. And so you have to really have some good practices in place so you don't do the self-sabotage, which is you just defaulting back to old patterns. And so, having some kind of practice, whether it's like meditation, breath work, walking, hitting the gym, there's so many different things that you can do, but I think it's really important for people to have that when they're starting out. So stress isn't something that
Yeah.
that is affecting your business, because it's actually the thing, it's the state of being you are in when you're making decisions and creating,
Yeah. So true. So true. I know that for me, the release of that stress, I've got to have a place for that. And to me, that's the gym. I've got to have a place for that to go. So cool. Some rapid fire wrap up kind of questions. Yes. We'll have a little fun on it as we wrap up. If you could have dinner with any entrepreneur, past or present, who would it be?
Martha Stewart.
Ooh, fascinating. Why?
Yes. Because she has, peak, first self-made female billionaire, lost it all, reputation, friends, freedom even, and has come back, I think even bigger and better than ever.
Yeah.
I would love to just be around her and see what she's about for a little bit.
Yeah, the lessons there have to be, wow, yeah. One business tool or app you can't live without.
Yeah. I'll be honest, ChatGPT. If that thing goes away, I'm like, it knows me. It knows like the email formats. I think AI is a really unique tool for, it makes you doing work solo so much easier. I love it. And
as I'm constantly reminded, it is the dumbest it will ever be right now.
Yes.
It's only going to get better.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. The most unconventional piece of business advice you ever received that actually worked?
Don't try to sell. Stop, and really it's getting to understanding that sales is a yes or no conversation instead of trying to win people or basically sell people. And so it was like, stop. And that actually works. You get the clients that you really want when you do that. Oh, you were there for a minute.
We're getting a little technical breakup on this. We'll wait. Oh, there, she's back. Okay. Oh, there you are. Okay. I'll try and trim that out. If you had to describe your business in a movie title, what would it be?
Yeah. Probably Mad Max.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah. It's just a car chase for 2.5 hours and you're constantly changing things on the fly, but it's a lot of fun.
Interesting. And then last but not least, any guilty pleasure that helps you unwind after a long day of running the business.
Yeah, people probably won't think it's very guilty because, there's not necessarily vices involved. So I'm a big fan of fiction books at night. And so after work is done, there's nothing that can get my brain spinning idea-wise. And so as soon as I can, I'm lost in a book for hours, if possible.
Cool. That's really cool. Awesome. Well, Sarah, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. I certainly appreciate it. Website, email address, if folks want to get in touch?
Yeah, my website is theoriginalmethodlifestyle.com. And then, and my email is sarah@theoriginalmethodlifestyle.com as well, or they can find me on the website, and also on Instagram as the Somatic Life Coach as well.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking some time. So, folks, Sarah Heringer from the Original Method Life, and I'm Parnell Woodard. This has been another episode of The Pivot Point. We'll see you guys next time.